So, as it says, hello, lovely people. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jenny Cole, and this is Goals with Soul. As I said, our kind of annual event to make sure that we start the year well, and better yet, we finish the year well, hopefully having achieved some of what we intended to achieve. So we've got, as I said, lots of lovely familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know me, my name's Jenny. I'm a coach and a consultant, and I call myself a cheerleader because I do believe in making sure that I'm clapping along with people as they as they're growing and developing. And I run online and in-person leadership development and training, as well as the one-to-one coaching that I do with people. And so there's a few of my coaching clients here today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Just moving things out of the way. So before we start today, I just thought I would show you a little bit of video that will give you a bit of context about where we're going with this and what kind of goals that we're going to be writing or looking at today. And what I'm going to share with you is a little bit of video by a lady called Angela Duckworth. And Angela Duckworth is a researcher, and she her book and her work is all around grit. And I was really familiar with it because she has a TED talk that's possibly up to 10 years old yet now, and it's very popular, and it's Angela Duckworth talking about grit, and it's all about students, but also the work that she did in the military. And grit always felt really hard to me. It felt like something that we needed to work really hard at, and I was far more into the joys of life than being gritty. And then I actually did read her book, and came across this fabulous little clip that I'm going to share with you that, as I said, hopefully will help us orientate a little bit about what I'm doing today. So hopefully you can see it and hear it.
One thing that makes me especially interested in human goals is that they exist in a hierarchy. I mean, picture a pyramid in your head of goals. From the very bottom level, low-level goals, I would call them. They're very specific, concrete things on your to-do list. To be gritty is not to hold steadfast to your to-do list goals. You know, call that person back, write that email. To be gritty is to have a well-organized and aligned pyramid of goals where the low-level goals serve mid-level goals and the mid-level goals serve higher-level goals. Ultimately, you have what some scientists like to call an ultimate concern. And that goal is the one that you're tenacious about, that you are stubborn about, that you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night aligned to, even if you have to switch out one of the low-level goals because it's just not working. Returning again and again to this question, well, what is my top-level goal? Like, what am I all about? Is a tremendously powerful exercise. You should ask yourself to keep coming back until you get to a phrase of, I would recommend, 10 words or fewer, that says, this is who I am. And every small decision adds up to furthering this goal, which is my ultimate concern. When I remember what my top level goal is, it helps me make decisions all the way down the tree. My top level goal is to help children thrive using psychological science. And every small decision that I need to make today or tomorrow, if I put it to that test, does this or does this not further that top level goal, I completely have my priorities in order.
So today, we're actually not going to look at your top level goal. If you've done any work with me in the past in any of my leadership programs, you'll know that we spend quite a lot of time looking at, Angela Duckworth calls it your ultimate concern, Simon Sinek calls it your why. You might want to think about it as your purpose statement. In some of the work I do, I talk about your branding or what you want to be known for. We're not going to talk about that today. That takes a bit of deep reflection, and I really encourage you to do that. But we are going to look at that kind of next level goals, those big rock goals that if we did something consistently for a period of time, say 6 to 12 months, that we would be getting much closer to our ultimate concern. So just for reference sake, hopefully this will flip over. As we know, we've started again. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can get it to the next slide. This is my professional top level goal. This is the reason I get up in the morning, because I want to be generous with my time, my heart and my expertise so that I can help others to grow. And specifically, I want the women that I work with to feel safe and supported to explore new possibilities and strategies in their life and work. And so when I'm making decisions, particularly in my professional life, this is what I hold myself against. Am I being generous? Am I making sure that people feel safe and supported? So as I said, this is not actually what we're going to do today, but I encourage you to think about your why statement and what is it that you're ultimately after, because it will make the rest of the goal setting process a little bit easier. But this process that we're going to use today is called Goals with Soul, because I'm going to take you through a bit of a process so that you just don't end up with something dry and uninteresting that you're never going to achieve. And so what you will need is pen. If you printed off the handout and want to write on that, you may do it. But honestly, a piece of paper or a journal or whatever you write in, we're going to do quite a bit of writing and you're going to need a quiet spot, which is why I have you all on mute. But please make sure that the dogs are out of the room and the doors are closed, because you're going to need a little bit of quiet. And as I said, you have the handout that you can go back to and refer to. So some of you don't like to write in handouts. You can do your shitty first draft in your workbook and transcribe it onto the pretty version later if you want to. The first part, though, is the wheel of life, which is our lives aren't just our work or our families. They're not just our friends or our personal growth. Our lives are very complex, and there are times when some things might pop up as being more important than others. There are times in our life where money might need a lot of attention for whatever reason. You might be purchasing your first house, or something else may have happened that made you attend to your money a bit more. I just want you to think about whatever the pieces of the pie that are relevant to you. Ask yourself, how satisfied am I on a scale of 1 to 10, or 0 to 10? 0's in the middle, 10's on the outside. You might want to draw a line, you might want to colour it in, but just take a minute or two to think, out of all of those things, how satisfied am I with those chunks of my pie? And we're going to keep moving. You can always come back to this. Again, if you've done any work with me, you'll know that I focus on strengths. And I like you to relentlessly interrogate what is working and not necessarily what is broken. So there is, in the next page in your workbook, but you can just write it down somewhere, I want you to think about, what am I doing or being that makes my 2 out of 10 not a 0 out of 10. So even if your fitness just went by the wayside last year, as it did for me, it wasn't a 0. There was something that I was doing. So there was a talent or an ability or a skill that I used. There was a habit or a routine or a practice, a behaviour that I performed often, Or those of you who are familiar with character strengths, there was a value or a strength that you used that was energizing. So on the page or on a blank page, you can either write what's working well in each of those areas of your wheel of life, or you might want to focus on one or two. They don't have to be the lowest, it doesn't have to be the highest. And I want you to write, what am I already doing that's working well? And this is permission not to be humble, because no one's going to read it. If you catch yourself going, oh, but other people can do it better, just override that thought and think, what am I already doing well? What processes are in place? What routines do I have? What skills or ability? Again, I'll give you a couple of minutes just to have a little write your heart out. All right, I'm going to challenge you to think of 2 more things that are working. It could be a relationship you've developed, it could be a skill that you have, it could be a quality that you know that you're known for. Specifically, what's already working. And then I want you to look at that list or that page, wherever you've been doing that writing, and I want you to congratulate yourself. And I want you to look at it and think, goodness me, look at all of those things that I can do. Look at all of those things that are working. Look at all of those things that I can do, even if it's just a little bit off. And I want you to remember that right here, right now, nothing bad is happening. No one's poking pins in your eyes. You know, you're relatively safe. You've got a roof over your head. You're participating in some professional learning. There is so much to be grateful for. And not only that, but you in the last 12 months or in the time period that you were thinking about managed to do some pretty amazing stuff. And there's some great research around the fact that we quite often don't stop and recognise how well we're doing or how far we've come. So from me to you, well done, congratulations. And we're going to keep writing. This is when you will probably want to ditch your handout and just turn it over and write on the back, or find a workbook piece of paper to write in, because I'm going to take you through a guided reflection, and I've done this many times with many people. I just want you to get yourself nice and comfortable. I'm going to be asking some questions. You can choose to answer them, or you can just choose to write as freely as you want. Don't edit yourself. Don't overthink things. Just write. And this is what we're going to be writing about. These are my questions. Don't worry too much about what's on the screen. But I want you to imagine that 2022 is the best year ever. Everything that you've worked for has eventuated, and you are doing exactly what you've planned to do. You've nailed it, and everyone is saying how fantastic it is. It doesn't mean that it's not a year without ups and downs. It doesn't mean that we've got over a pandemic or, won $1 million. It just means that at the end of the year, it has been as good as it possibly can be for you. I want you to start writing what would be happening if we were having this conversation next year. What would you be noticing? What might you have done? Importantly, I want you to tell me how you will feel when it has been the best year ever. Oops. So what's that feeling? And then unpack that feeling. So if you said, I want to feel content, what does content feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? Does content mean having your shoulders up around your ears, or does content mean I feel relaxed and I'm not feeling pressure in my body? If you said you want to feel confident, what does confident feel like? What does it look like? What might other people be saying about you and what you're doing if you've had the best year ever? And if it's helpful, you might want to think about getting out of bed on a day when you're leading your best life at work or at home, whatever you're thinking, and you're getting out of bed and you're driving to work. How are you feeling? When you get to work or wherever it is that you're going or whatever it is that you're doing, what are you noticing? Who's around you? And if you could imagine just kind of floating like a fairy across your life and your day, what are you doing? And importantly, what are you not doing? Who are you talking to? If health and well-being is important, what are you eating? How are you exercising? How are you sleeping? If relationships are important, what do they look like? Who are they with? And what would other people be noticing about you? So if I stopped and had a chat to your friend or to your partner or to a work colleague this time next year, what would they be saying about you? What do you want them to notice? What do you want to be known for? And of course, you can look at any of these questions through the lens of work, family, fitness, money, any of those parts of the pie. So you don't have to think about your life as an entirety. You might want to just think about a cross section. How am I doing that thing? What habits have I got? What processes are in place? And importantly, how am I feeling? Just another minute. And when you're ready, finish off that last sentence. And I just need you to know that what you've written there is not a goal. Most of us do not like big, hairy, audacious goals set a long time in the future. And trust me, 12 months is a long time in the future. This is one of the reasons why New Year's resolutions don't work, because they're often pretty vague, they're hard to achieve, they're set a long way away. Instead, what you've done there is get closer to your ultimate concern that Angela Duckworth talked about in the video. It's a vision of where you would like to go. And goal setting is a little bit like climbing a ladder. You can put a lot of energy and time into climbing up a ladder, but you want to make sure that that ladder is resting against the right wall, or you've wasted a whole lot of energy. So that visioning helps you get clear about what it is that you'll be feeling and being and known for when you've reached your goal. But goals themselves, those mid-level goals, I talk about them as being goals being the habits you want to create. So what will I be doing more of or less of habitually over and over and over again? This gets us closer to a goal. So I want you to think to yourself, you've done that visioning into the future, and you think, in order to be that amazing, wonderful, fabulous person with that brilliant life, what do I need to be doing by, say, June in order to get there? What kind of habits will I need to have in place so that I'm confident? Or what kind of habits will I need to have in place so that I'm leading my team? And so goals are the habits we want to create. I'm not going to go too much into that. But these are the routines that we need to have in order to reach that perfect future that we just talked about, and so that we feel the way that we want to feel. Many of us are aware of things called SMART goals. Most people write them really, really badly. because they miss the feeling or the intrinsic motivation. And so I'm going to share 2 goals here. So by June, I will be clearly and confidently saying no to people so that I can get to my own work. So in your perfect future, you may have seen a version of yourself that is well organised, committed, not easily distracted, who gets work done, and so forth. But at the moment, you're actually somebody who has really wobbly boundaries. So it's absolutely no point putting in a whole lot of organisational skill goals. You know, I want to be more organised by June, when actually what you want to do is to set better boundaries. So the habit in this goal is saying no to people so that I can get to my own work and I feel on top of things. So sometimes goals have 2 so that's, but it's the feeling that I want to get to my own work and be on top of things. Another example, many of us get easily distracted by social media and a million other things that are easily distractible. This goal is by June, I will have ways of recognising when I'm distracted by social media so that I don't waste time. And there's a feeling attached so that I feel more organised or so that I feel more competent. I literally just had a coaching session with a client whose goal is I'm going to be recognising and catching the voices in my head that tell me that I'm not good enough to do something. Now that's her goal. She's very, very clever. She has all the skills that she needs. She has all the, she has the money and the capability, but what she doesn't have is the ability to catch those voices of self-doubt. So that's what her goal is built on. So I want you to have a look at what you just wrote in your future perfect and say to yourself, if I could have achieved something by June, what is it? What actually is the thing that I needed to get better at, to do more of or do less of? And what will that make me feel? And again, many of you will be familiar with this structure of a goal. Some of you not so. So let me walk you through it. The buy, and there's this scaffold is in your handout. The buy is by a certain time frame. By June. Anything longer than June feels like a hard slog. Anything shorter than that is those low-level kind of procedural goals that that Angela Duckworth talked about. So I kind of find that 6 months is a pretty good go at a goal. And goals are written as if you have already achieved them. So by June, I am consistently doing such and such. Or by June, I will have ways of stopping myself being distracted. Or by June, I will have set up processes for meeting with all of my staff regularly. So they're written in the positive to give you something to work towards. And the so that is the feeling that you want to feel, although there are sometimes two so that's. So by June, I will be saying no so that I get to my own work and so that I feel more on top of things, or I feel more productive. So take that 1 or 2 things that you want to focus on and just see if you can craft them in the by such and such, I am, or I will be, or I have, so that. And if there's another one that pops up for you, feel free to write a second one. And then you'll notice the scale at the bottom. Some of you will be very familiar with the scale. The scale is, where are you now? Because most of you aren't starting from zero. So by June, I will be putting in place processes so that I use my diary more effectively, so that I stay on top of things. I'm currently a 4 out of 10. Where would I like to get to? I'd like to get to an 8 out of 10. Knowing that I will not be perfect, but 4 to a 10 is growth. So one of the reasons I love a scale is that it is very hard to quantify an emotion. So if you want to feel more confident, or you want to feel more energetic, or you want to feel more productive, then it's really hard to know whether or not you've nailed it, because they're just feelings. How do you measure those? Scales are just one way, and they're personal. So your 4 out of 10, you know what your 4 out of 10 looks like or feels like, and you know what your 8 out of 10 feels like and looks like. So you can measure against something. There will be some goals where you can measure output, but they're not the kind of goals I like to write, because positive psychology says that those kind of output goals, so I will have done 15 of these, or I will have won my promotion, or I will have 5 assignments finished, while they are okay, they are low-level achievement goals. And when you get them, when you hit them, when you achieve them, you get a momentary hit of dopamine, but it doesn't last. Whereas when you have a goal that's tied to a feeling, you get a great much more deeper life satisfaction out of it than one of those just do it kind of things. Nothing wrong with those product goals, but process goals are much, much better. So hopefully by now you will have at least one goal, but that is still along the lines of a New Year's resolution. You've got a goal, it's awesome. That's not necessarily going to get you anywhere. So let's move on. Hope theory is my favourite theory in positive psychology. One, because I really like it, but it suggests that people who are able to articulate a really clear vision of where they're going, so that perfect future with an end point, and can show agency, which is, I can do this. This is within my control, and if I try hard enough, I can achieve it. And importantly, those people who can identify multiple pathways to the goal, they demonstrate higher life satisfaction, they're more energized, they're more flexible thinkers. Hope theory says that if one way to the goal is thwarted, a little bit like Angela Duckworth talked about, then you need to be able to think of options. And the more options that you have, the better. So we see this with kids who need a certain ATAR result to get into university. And if all they have focused on is a number, I need to get 98 so that I can do law, and then that disappears, those kids actually are worse off than when they wrote that goal. So the ability to see lots and lots of options. So maybe ATAR is not the only way. Maybe there's another way you can get entrance. Maybe you can do another course first. Those kids who can see multiple options, or those adults, are often much, much happier in their life. So what I want you to do with your goal after you've left this is to go back and think, what are all the options for reaching my goal? And I want you to just get really creative and think, what are the obvious options? What are the non-obvious options? What would my friends tell me to do? What would my best mate tell me to do? What would my critics tell me to do? And just jot all of those down, because in coaching, what I've discovered is it's the obvious option that people say, I've tried and it doesn't work, and they give up. But sometimes it's the 10th, 11th, 12th option that they've not even thought of that gives them the energy and gives them a bit of clarity. And I'm smiling because there is someone on the call today who in a recent conversation with me said, I would never have thought that option in a million years, and left coaching full of energy to investigate something that they'd not even considered and that had got them stuck. So jot down as many options. They will often start with investigating. So sometimes the first thing you need to do in your goal is investigate something. Google it, check it out, ask somebody about it, find out what the information is. And that leads us to first steps. And it is not the goal, but the very first step that is going to ensure your success, which is why goals and New Year's Eve resolutions fail. It's the very, very, very smallest first step that you need to take within 24 hours to gain momentum. So I want you to look back at your goal, and I want you to think to yourself, there are 1,000 ways that I could do this. There's probably a whole lot of stuff that I need to do. You may have set yourself a goal to lose 30 kilos. Well, that feels huge. And you may have written down an option is to go to the gym. Even that feels big. What's the smallest step? And so the smallest step maybe that you could take within the next 24 hours is to Google the closest gym to you and phone them. 2 small steps. Google, phone. After you phone them, you get a bit of momentum. You may have booked a session and so forth, and you just keep going. It is not the goal that will get you where you need to go, but the first small step. So maybe you've written that you want to find ways of managing your team really well this year. Well, the very first small step might be just to write down all of their names. Who are your team? Write them down. Or you may have set a goal around spending more time with your family. The very smallest first step could be just getting out a calendar and coming up with a family calendar, which might be something that you've tried before and works. So it's always better to do something that's already worked, but the tiniest first step. And then plan for sustaining a habit, because we all know that it's the habit that's the hard thing. And once we get in the habit of something, we're pretty good. And the third thing that we need to do is how and to whom we will be accountable. So a goal shared is it's about 70% more likely to be achieved than if you don't tell anyone about it. So who can you be accountable to? If you want to write your goal in the chat box, that would be awesome. If you want to email it to me, that would be awesome. I don't keep you accountable. just the fact that you've shared it out loud to somebody. So maybe you want to get off this call and say it out loud to your partner, or send a text to a girlfriend and say, my goal for this year is. And I've just read, oh, Darlene, excellent. I'm so pleased I'm on the right track with goal setting. Thank you for writing that in the chat box. Let me just talk a little bit about the power of habit. Charles Duhigg, there's a whole lot of work around habits at the moment. Charles Duhigg is the easiest to understand, but the two amazing books, Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do so. And the other one has completely gone out of my head, so I shall email it to you. But remember, goals are the habits that you create. So oh, thank you. Who's just Darlene? Thank you for putting that in the chat box. You are now accountable to me. So cue, routine, reward. Basic behaviour management for those of you who are in schools. Something happens which sets something else off, and there's a reward. It's the habit loop. So let me give you an example. It's dinner, it's bedtime. So you stand up, clean your teeth, brush your hair, put your jammies on, go to bed. It feels better. You would almost never not clean your teeth. It is part of your routine. You hop in the car, you put your seatbelt on. The cue is to sit down. The routine is to put your seatbelt on. And there's no longer a reward, but there probably was in the beginning. But habits around personal goals are often a little bit harder to see. But let's look at that one that says, I will be politely and confidently saying no to people so that I can get on with my own work. So the cue might be somebody saying, would you mind just looking at this for a second? And your routine might currently be, oh, sure, just leave it on my desk. There's no reward for you in it at the moment, except that you probably have this need to feel helpful or like you're being useful. Whereas now, if this was your goal, you might be saying, Q, can you have a look at this for me? Your new routine might be, yeah, sure, but I won't get to it by Friday. You're still getting that reward that you're being helpful, but you've just been a bit more polite and a bit more confident in establishing your boundaries. So it's really important that habits, we get stuck in habits. So you need to have a new habit. So if you've got a new habit of going to the gym, it might be, the cue might be, as I get up in the morning, I put my shoes on and I go for a walk, and I get the reward of feeling like I'm, achieving something. Oh, fantastic. Everyone's sending them through to me. Thank you to those people who are sending. Excellent. But just remember, it's the habit that will keep it going. So just make sure that you spend a little bit of time thinking about the cue, routine, reward. I'll give you an example. I am really bad at drinking water. I'm sorry if this is the 7th year in a row that you've heard this, but my latest cue is that I get up in the morning and I put the kettle on to have a cup of coffee. Now, as soon as I flick the switch on the kettle, I make myself drink a big glass of water. So it's done before I have my coffee. My coffee is my reward for having water. And it's working so far, because I have a headache from not having enough coffee and drinking too much water. The other book was Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg, Atomic Habits, and they are the smallest thing that you can do that's just going to keep you going. And so both of them talk about, if you've got an aim to drink more water or to read more, start with reading 2 lines, because it's so achievable, you just can't fail. But what happens when you read 2 lines of a book? You read another 2 and another 2 and another 2, and all of a sudden you've read a chapter. If you want to drink more water, then just have a sip, and chances are you'll have another sip and another sip. So thank you to the person who said that. Also at the end of your booklet is a letter to yourself. I do this in two ways. The one at the end of your book is kind of filled out. You can fill in the blanks. But if you've done workshops with me before, you know that I do write a letter to yourself in 12 months' time. And we just almost rewrite what we talked about in the Future Perfect activity. And it says, "Dear Jenny, congratulations for having a fabulous year." And I go on to talk about some things. Fold it up and post it. Somebody shared with me that they write that letter to themselves every year and put it in with the Christmas decorations so that they get it out at Christmas time every year, and they read it to themselves. But you are more than welcome to email it to me or send it to me, and I will post it back to you in 12 months' time. It's a really great accountability, 6 or 12 months. But you can have an accountability buddy. Find someone who will be honest and keep you on track. As I said, we're social beings. We are so designed to do this in tandem with somebody else. So I have an accountability buddy who I ring on Monday for half an hour each week. We know each other's goals. She shares her successes and failures and her next step actions, and I do mine too. It's over and done within half an hour. You could get yourself a coach. Some of you are coaching with me or have internal coaches in your organisations, and they will keep you accountable. Or you could just do it quietly in your own journal. But don't forget to keep checking back in on your goal and asking yourself, is what I'm doing getting me closer to my goal? And is it getting me closer to the life and work that I want to do, or the life that I want to lead? I'm really happy at this moment to answer any questions that anybody has, or if you've got an observation or comment. And thank you, Katrina, who says, "I'm feeling very seen by this example." I chose sample examples that were very familiar to a lot of you, so don't worry too much. Excellent. All righty. Feel free to ask any questions. And I'm just going to do a bit of blatant publicity for those people who aren't aware. I run a whole series of online and face-to-face programs, but for those of you who are in leadership and management positions, who have been there for a little while, you might be interested in the Collective. And the Collective is an online membership program for professional women and those who are in leadership and management. And so these are for people who have done lots of professional learning, who know a lot of stuff, but just want the company of other people who are in similar places and who want that daily, extra dose of inspiration and ideas and thoughts and so forth. I'm just going to put that in oops, no, wrong one. And this is what you get. So it's full of book reviews. I've got a whole bunch of videos of books that I would recommend. There are interviews with experts. There's a yearly planner, and we do a 5-monthly mid-year review as well. And each month has a topic. All of those topics have lessons, and there's downloads and PDFs and ideas and suggestions. There's podcast links and pro formas and things that people have shared. There's an online forum so people can discuss what they're doing. And these days, really excitedly, just recently, whoops, Daisy, I keep missing that. You can get it on an app, so you can literally be listening to the learning as you're walking the dog in the park in the morning. Is there space for yes, there's always space for you, Miss Shani, always. Oh, thank you to whoever said they were just diving into the collective and loving it. Excellent. Fantastic. Oh, you can find me all over the place. If you're here, it's because I've got your email address. So I know where to find you, but you can find me, Jenny at Positively Beaming. I have a business Facebook group called Facebook page called Positively Beaming, and many of you are members of Wildly Wonderful Women, which is the private Facebook group where I post inspirational or silly posts every single morning. I wish you the very, very best with your goals. I would encourage you, before you open the door, before you leave this space, that you go through your notes. You make sure that your goal is clear. You make sure that you've got a first step, next action. You have some thoughts about other options to get closer to your goal, and that you've given some consideration to how can I make this a habit, and who can keep me accountable. So thank you so much, everybody. Lovely to see you all here. Thank you for the notes in the chat box, and all the information, including all the new events. There's an event on the 18th called Starting Strong. It's all on the website, positivelybeaming.com.au, under events or the Work With Me section. So take care, and I'll see you soon when I can work out how to make this stop.